right, welcome back to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Gault from Moline PD in Illinois, 27 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to this conversation. So, welcome to the show, Chief Gault. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Paige, for having me on your show today.
Of course, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I think that we have a lot of really great topics that we haven't really dove into in great detail. So I'm looking forward to doing that with you today. But for anyone who doesn't know you, if you could give us a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in law enforcement since 1998, 27 years in law enforcement. It's been a great career. I've pretty much done everything in law enforcement that I had set out to do. I've worked for two different agencies. I spent 21 years at the East Moline Police Department, which is just right next door. I ended up retiring there as the second in command at the rank of captain. I had been recruited to come over here to Moline to be the police chief. It was an agency that was in a little bit of turmoil and needed a fresh start. So I took the leap of faith in 2019 and came over here as the police chief. And so I've been serving as the police chief in Moline, Illinois since 2019. And just like my entire career, it's gone fast. The 27 years has gone fast, and this last 5, 6 years has gone really fast. I think if anybody young is listening to this podcast, enjoy the ride because it goes really quickly.
Yeah. And I think life goes by quickly. I've had that moment a few times where I'm like, where, like, how, I don't understand, like, where the time
Yeah.
goes. And I do think that, some I think the fun times go faster, right? The
Yes, they
hard the
do.
hard times seem to drag on a little bit, but the fun times go fast. And I wanted to ask you, I know you said that you came to this agency, it was in a little bit of turmoil and needed a fresh start. What were some of the things that you guys were going through and how did you start focusing on turning that around?
Yeah, so the Moline Police Department had a couple of kind of incidents that internally that had caused a bit of strife in the agency. They had a culture that had basically divided the police department into two. They had an employee that had been terminated and got their job back, was a bit controversial, and there was two sides to that that had kind of created these different factions inside the department. The chief previous to me was arrested for DUI and ended up leaving. So they had an interim police chief while they were doing a national search, and that went on a long time. Went on, I think, about 9 months. They went through two rounds of searching, and I hadn't even put in for it. The city administrator ended up calling me and recruiting me to put in for it at the end, and so they were just kind of, I think, emotionally exhausted
Yeah.
in the police department from a lot of internal stress. And so we worked really hard to try to get that turned around, and I think we're in a great place now.
That's great. And from what I hear, a lot of times the internal stress can be even more stressful than external stressors sometimes. And so, having that culture shift to be able to have less stress, within the organization is always a positive thing. You started in 2019 at this current
Correct.
agency, and then 2020.
Yeah. No one told us about 2020. Yeah, so I got hired in July of 2019, and so I think like every new chief, you're excited. I have a cousin that is in executive management in private Fortune 500 companies. So I had reached out to him, and when you're in the private sector, those executives move around from organization to organization quite a bit. So I had reached out to him, and I said, "Hey, can you just tell me what a good transition plan looks like when you go into a new agency?" And so he had worked with me to create a transition plan, and some of that was about a 30-day don't make any changes, right? So I went through a 30, 60, 90-day transition plan. So that kind of ate up a large part of the second half of 2019 after I got hired from July to, let's just say, December. So we had built a strategic plan. Of course, we're on a calendar year for our budget. So we had went through a budget for 2020. We were ready to go. January 2020, we were ready to go. And then everybody knows what happened in March of 2020. the world shut down, and it was like the wheels came off the front. And then May, we had the George Floyd murder in Minneapolis and anti-police rhetoric, and the wheels of the bus fell off in the back, and we were just, you know, unraveling as a profession in law enforcement. So COVID and the anti-police narrative that went on for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, was also very exhausting.
And what was that experience like for you as a new chief? Like, how do you navigate those waters? How do you build morale? What are some of the things that you tried to focus on during those really challenging times?
Yeah, so I think the problem for me at that point was there wasn't a playbook for what the world was going through in 2020. I think all of us, when you get to this point, plus 20 years, right, you have enough resources that you can reach out to and be like, hey, what'd you do during this time period? Maybe a retired chief or another chief or another agency. And we were literally building a plane while it was flying, the old adage. And there was no one had answers. Like, what do you do with a global pandemic? We have a profession that you can't work from home. You can't zoom in as a police officer to handle a bank robbery, right? I mean, we had to tell people to still out and go do their jobs. And, everybody was scared in that March, April, May of 2020. So it was additional stress on all of us, and then from an executive, just had no idea. So I think we really had to work hard as a team of executives, when both internally with my staff, but we met twice a week as area chiefs and the sheriff, and just tried to stay on top of information and work through it together. And we became very close friends, I think, because of that. But we really had to lean on each other during those times.
Yeah, I could only imagine. And I think that a lot of people maybe don't consider that. Maybe general public wouldn't consider how challenging that was during the time. And I wrote this down before you even said it is, it seems to me like through that challenging time, you banded together and it brought you closer as a profession because you didn't know what to do. And so you had to lean on each other to figure out how to navigate.
Yeah, when I got hired at Moline, some of the people that I ended up working with in 2020, I really hadn't worked with before. They had taken different paths. So I knew who they were. I'd maybe had some interaction with them from my administrative experience. But I think, like, I spent a lot of time in investigations, narcotics, gangs. So I knew those people. And if those chiefs or sheriffs didn't work narcotics or gangs, I wasn't really close with them. So I knew who they were, but I just, wasn't really tight with them. And once this all kind of unraveled, we spent so many hours together. You were just so thankful for them, and we became, each other's sounding boards. And I think that's one of the greatest things that I learned during that time period as an executive was you've got to form kind of your own support team at an executive level, because no one else in law enforcement knows what you're going through as an executive. That, what the stress that officers go through, that we go through in the law enforcement profession, is a little different than an executive type stress. Because even though I wear a police uniform, I'm a sworn police officer. I tell people this all the time. I am the furthest thing from a police officer in my organization. Just to give the listeners little bit of a background, the city of Moline is about 42,000 people. We have a daytime population over 100,000. I have 84 officers, sworn officers. So, I guess you'd say a mid-sized agency. I'm not out doing traffic stops. I'm not making arrests. I'm running a business. I'm running a $17 million business.
Mhm.
And so I'm a police officer, but I'm not doing police work. I'm not going to domestics. I'm not going to homicides. I'm trying to keep this place afloat, and that is extremely stressful.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I'm curious to know, like, with the stress that you have to go through, on a daily basis, what are the things that have helped you to offload that? I know that you said having a support system has been really beneficial, but was there anything else that helped you through your executive career to offload some of that stress?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is you have to have a wingman or just to use a generic term, I guess, a consigliere that you're able to talk to and that is there for you because you've got to have somebody to just offload the story to. So
Mm,
I'll give you a quick example. It was about a week into my new mayor's term of office 4 years ago. So it would have been May of 21. I had a police officer going to a call. A 13-year-old kid stepped off a curb in front of her squad car, and she hit and killed him.
mm,
And I had no other executive staff here. They were away doing internal affairs training in Las Vegas. It was just me. And so I responded, obviously to the scene, and I'm trying to, make all these notifications. I had to call the new mayor who'd been in office, I think maybe 4 or 5 days. I'm trying to deal with the politics, trying to deal with the investigation, trying to deal with the press. And the fire chief, who had probably close to 30 years at that point, had came up to me. He's like, "Hey, what do you need?" And I said, "I think I'm fine." And I think I've got it. I got it under control, made a lot of calls and stuff. And he's like, "Hey, how about if I just drive you around?" And I
mm.
was like, "Well, that's kind of weird. I don't think I need a driver." And I look back on that now, and I've told this story numerous times. It was the greatest thing ever because I just got into the passenger seat of his car, and he's like, "Where do you need to go?" I said, "Well, I need to go to the hospital where the officer's at." So he drove me there. From the scene, I made probably 10 phone calls. And then he's just kind of like talking to me as a friend. And I didn't really know what he was doing at the time. So then I handled the stuff there, and he's like, "Hey, where do you need to go now?" And I said, "I need to go to the other hospital where the family is at from the child that was hit." So he drove me over there. I made probably another 10 phone calls. And in hindsight, that was so helpful from a couple of standpoints. It made that easier for me. I was able to multitask. I was able to kind of talk to him and just vent. And he had no law enforcement experience. He's a fire chief, but he deals with people, right? He has 70 firefighters. He just knows the job. And that turned out to be so helpful. So, one piece of advice I would tell anybody in this position is never turn down help. Never turn down help. It doesn't matter if somebody's just wanting to drive you around while you're dealing with something, never turn down help.
I think that that's a great story, and I love that advice. And good on him too for looking out for you. And I think that another piece of advice to anyone is like look out for one another. Be willing to provide that help and have the awareness if someone needs help to ask if they need some resources because you guys are a team. And I think that for someone even in fire to come up to you and be like, "Hey, like we're a team." It doesn't have to be exclusive to law enforcement or, for fire, it doesn't have to be exclusive to fire. You guys can come together as public safety and help each other out. I love that story. I think that that's great.
Yeah, I think sometimes people overcomplicate wellness, office like mental health wellness. So, it's obviously a buzzword now. It's officer wellness is a big thing. But you see all these trainings about peer support and counseling and mental health and stuff like that, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But I think that it sometimes is overcomplicated.
Mhm.
In the most generic sense, just be there for somebody or just ask them if they need something, right? And it's maybe just removing a little bit of stress or a little bit of pressure or taking a task off their hands, particularly at an executive level, might be the difference maker between somebody just, you know, succumbing to too much stress or the pressure. If one of your neighbors in the industry has a critical incident, be like, "Hey, what do you need? Is there anything I can do for you? Can I come over and just take notes?" That's another thing that I tell a lot of new chiefs is get somebody. in your organization or another chief or somebody to just come and stand next to you and do nothing else but take some notes.
Mm.
And and that is an amazing relief for people because things are moving so fast. And so you don't have to be a trained in peer support. You don't have to be trained in mental health. You don't have to get somebody to sit down and, you know, debrief with you. That can be done by professionals or, these other programs. Just be there for the little things. I think that can make a big difference.
Have you ever heard the expression of sitting in the mud with you?
I have not.
I had someone else who said this and I really liked it. And they said sometimes you just need someone to sit in the mud with you. You know, sometimes like in the hard times, you just need someone who's like willing to like be in it with you, just sit
Yeah.
there with you. And like you said, be that resource. And I agree that sometimes it's the smallest things that makes the biggest impact, you know. And some of my favorite things to talk about are like those little things that you can do to make people feel valued, to make people feel supported, and to make sure that they don't feel like they're alone, because I think that a lot of times, and it's human nature, but especially in public safety, you're so used to being strong and taking care of everybody else that it can be extremely isolating and you forget to take care of yourself. And so to have that reminder of like, hey, like you have people in your circle, you have people who are willing to sit in the mud with you. And I think that that goes a long way.
Yeah, one thing that I don't know that anybody really knows is all of these programs that are out there right now, particularly in law enforcement profession, are focused on a term called officer wellness.
Mhm.
And even IECP has an officer wellness conference. A lot of the states have them, peer support. They are largely focused on the police officer doing public safety law enforcement tasks. There are very few programs or classes on police chief wellness. There are very few executive level wellness courses or focus.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that I've seen, and you could even Google, police chief wellness, and you'll find very limited information, very limited research, very limited data. And what I think that people forget is that there's a lot of pressure on us as police chiefs to take care of everybody else,
Yeah.
and no one is taking care of the police chiefs.
What do you think an executive wellness program would look like if there was something that was built out that focuses specifically on chiefs? What do you think those resources should look like?
Well, let's talk just a little bit about what the difference is in
Yeah.
a police chief and a staff member, right? So I think just the general public knows that police officers are going to traumatic scenes. They are going to murders, car crashes, death scenes. And so in the industry, it's cumulative stress, cumulative trauma that is building up on an officer from these things that they're seeing that just kind of stack on top of them and it causes them and it to end up to break. But when you're a police chief, you're not necessarily going to those. You're worried about your staff that are going to those, but your stress is a lot different as a police chief.
Mhm.
So, and what I think that no one really has either is talking about is what the stress level increased in the last, let's just call it post 2020, uh, went up. And so back in 2021, about 25% of the police chiefs nationwide left their positions. By
Mhm.
2024, 80% of the police chiefs in major cities had turned over.
Mhm.
And another example in small towns or small cities, in Rhode Island, 21 of the 37 police chiefs are new in 2024. And I think the Police Executive Research Foundation had done some research on it, and they said that being a police chief in America today is one of the most daunting jobs there is.
Mhm.
You have competing challenges of funding issues, violent crime issues, implementing de-escalation, and community trust issues. So these are different types of stress than a gory scene, or these other things that officers are dealing with.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question of what does an executive level wellness program look like, we have to get into what the police chief is doing on a daily basis. And this is dealing with politics, the pressure of managing politician expectations, public expectations, and then the law, right? The legalities that we have to deal with. Um, there are a lot of different things that a police chief has to deal with that are not in their wheelhouse. You spend 20 plus years doing tactics, doing you know, law, car crashes, investigations, and now you're dealing with budgets. Police chiefs may not have a business background. May not understand how to use spreadsheets, how to deal with governmental budgeting and staffing issues. Back in 2018, IECP has a division called the State Associations of Chiefs of Police, and they had a presentation about the top stressors that police chiefs faced, and staff shortages was the number one stressor for a police chief in 2018.
Yeah.
I probably do not have to tell your listeners or my fellow people listening in the industry, staff shortages is 10 to 20 times worse today than they were in 2018. So imagine the stress level. If that was the number one stressor in 2018, imagine the stress a police chief is feeling now. And I just traveled to Texas earlier this year and met with the Texas Association of Police Chiefs, and they were telling me that police chiefs are losing their jobs because of staffing. Yeah, they're being held accountable for the lack of staffing. And so that's the kind of stress that is building up on today's police chief.
Do you think that younger officers understand that? And if they did understand that, do you think that maybe there would be less friction and more of like empathy towards executive level? And I think the second question I have to that is how can someone who's early in their career prepare for that? If you don't have that experience and you don't understand the stressors, how can you prepare for that?
Yeah, I think well, here's another example of preparing yourself. So police officers and most command staff, mid-level command staff, go home at the end of the day and have the rest of their day to themselves. Maybe a little bit as an investigations commander, your phone's with you all the time because you've got your a detective's on call for a week. But when you're a police chief, you are never off duty, ever. And I think that it is important to communicate with your staff of what you are doing, not necessarily to brag about it, but if you know, to be transparent with up and comers, up and comer lieutenants or executive levels in your staff, that you've got to prepare yourself that there is no off time. A politician, a mayor is going to call you when you're on vacation. You have to answer that call. They're going to call you at 10 o'clock at night when they have their off time, because politicians, for the most part, in most cities outside of the major cities, are part-time. That means they have a job during the day and they do their politics of running a city at night. They're going to call you at night. You're going to still get the phone call of the bad case, the bad crash, the homicide at 4 in the morning. There is no vacation from your phone. And one thing that I think there has been some research on in this area is the effects that it has on your family.
Mm,
And you know, my family notices. I mean, we're on vacation, and I'm answering my phone, I'm answering emails. You can't get away from it. The expectation of this job is that you are always available,
mm.
and that is something that I don't think anyone really anticipates when they have aspirations to be a police chief.
And what do you think it is? I mean, because obviously the stress is on a different level, and like you said, it's really hard to turn it off. And I have experience in my own life with that. You know, like you said, you're running a business and it's hard when everyone is contacting you all the time. And then it goes back to what we said before about, you know, having no one to turn to and what does that look like? How do you think you can build a wellness program or offer different wellness resources that can help with that so that you're not on your own island with no one to talk to and no resources to be able to offload?
Well, certainly mentoring is a major component of that. I think that if you're going to get into the police chief space, you have to understand that it's very lonely at the top. So if you came up through your organization, the fact of the matter is you're going to lose close friends in that organization for a couple of reasons. One, you have to distance yourself from kind of those Friday nights with the guys things, right? Because you're the chief now.
Mm.
You can't really be there for those, or you can't be there late, right? For some of those events or different things.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that you're going to lose some of those close relationships because they don't want to be seen as the employee that's with the chief or going to games with the chief, going to sporting events or concerts with the chief. They don't want to be on vacation with the chief.
Mm.
So you naturally lose some relationships. I think it's a little bit easier if you're an outside chief because you don't have these 20 years of friendships. So that's my current situation here is that while I'm friendly with a lot of people here, we're not doing a lot of personal things. I still have people from outside the organization, even people that I used to work with that my previous agency that I'm still close with.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare yourself for that. So back to the mentoring, you need to have someone probably that's been in the job for a while that can serve as your mentor. So when I got this job, I already mentioned the fire chiefs played a big role for me inside the police department or the city. Even though he wasn't part of the police department, he knew the city. He knew the politics of the city. He knew the resources of the city. He knew how different forms or different procedures worked, how you got stuff, who kind of had the power of the purse, things like that. So he was my inside the city mentor. And then another police chief next door in another city had been a police chief for about 8 or 9 years at that point and I leaned on him heavily for advice. You've got to have somebody that you can go to for advice. And now I do that for. I mean, I've been here 6 years. I do that now for other people that don't have the length of time that I have because now I have experiences that I can share with them. So now I'm more of a mentor mentee. The mentor mentee relationship kind of changes. So you have to have somebody that can be your mentor.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it just goes back to what we said before of like coming together, making sure that your support systems for each other. I know that there's, quite a few states that have talked about um, regionalizing peer support for executives. And so there's, some people who are trying to do something in that lane where just like you would have a peer support team within the organization and training that goes into that, then, the chiefs would also have some sort of training programs so that they're prepared for those things. And then they can, all talk to each other and have a network within the state. So I know that there's some people who are trying to spearhead that. And I hope that over time, everyone has a resource or a mentor so that they feel like they're not alone. Because I think that's the worst thing is to
Yeah.
feel, and I know we talked about this before when you said it's like lonely at the top, and you don't feel like you have anywhere to go, and it's maybe not appropriate to talk to, other people within the organization. And so my hope is that that's something that gains traction.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think that if you think you're going to take this job and everything's going to be the same that it was when you were an officer, it's not going to be, and you're in for a rude awakening. So I think it would behoove somebody that maybe is at a mid-level or that wants to get involved with this is really start to have that mentor early on, be like, hey, what is it like? What do you like about the job? What do you hate about the job?
Yeah.
Um, and I think the fact of the matter is that the length of tenure for a police chief is under 3 years at this point. At one point, I think I saw some stats back in the mid 2000s that, chiefs were around about 7.5 years, and now they're around about 2.5, 2.7 years.
Yeah.
It's not a job that a lot of people can, I guess, tolerate for a long time because the pressure is enormous. The stress is enormous and it's different. It's different stress that as an officer you're not prepared for. So, you know, talk to existing police chiefs and just know what you're getting into. I'm not saying you can't do it. We need good people to do this job. I mean, I'm not going to stay here forever. I need somebody to take over after I leave here. We all need good police officers. I don't know if you know the Travis Manion story. You can Google that, but he was a U.S. Marine and his family didn't want him to get deployed again. And he said, if not me, then who? Like, I'm trained for this. I'm prepared for this. Unfortunately, he was killed over in Iraq, and now they have the Travis Manion Foundation to tell the story. But we need good people to do these jobs, police officers and police chiefs. If it's not me, then who's going to do this? I'm trained for it. I'm prepared for it, but I need to get the next generation of people to have that same mentality. Okay, you're ready to go and I need you to step up. And if not you, then who's going to do it, right? We need people to be in public safety.
Yeah. And I think that that brings me to my next question. And I'm curious because I know we talked about staffing and how challenging that is now more than ever. And I've had this come up a few times in conversation. I'm interested to hear your perspective. Um, how do you think that the staffing challenges are going to impact future leadership? Because I've heard that it's like we don't have enough people. And then you have people who are maybe promoting that don't have the experience that they used to before because of the shortage. It's like we have to have more bodies. And so, how do you think that that staffing shortage is going to impact future leadership?
Well, it's impacting him now. I lost 172 years of command experience by the between 2020 and 2022. So I ended up bringing in an outside deputy chief from the sheriff's department that was the chief deputy. He's got over 30 years of experience, and not only did it help the organization, it helped me. Him and I had worked together for a long time. We'd been partners in a gang unit for a long time, so I knew, he had a lot of good experience. But he's basically been able to be that crutch to prop up our organization, and we're committed to training now the people in our mid and upper levels of command staff. We had to get people to executive leadership training like Northwestern University puts on School of Police Staff and Command, the FBI National Academy. We had to get people through those. We had to get people working on projects and getting them exposed to internal affairs, budgeting, doing major projects like launching a drone program or fleet management, different things like that. We couldn't just drop those people in these positions when they had like less than 13 years on the job.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, some of these positions the only way you're going to get there is experience. There is training, there is experience, but then the third leg too is the individual skill sets. Not everybody's good with Excel, other people are. Not everybody's good with, leadership, other people are better at management. So you have to kind of tailor all these things to individuals. So, the staffing problem, I'm 27 years, we've never had enough people. The problem now is we don't have enough applicants.
Mm.
And so we're seeing, and this isn't limited to law enforcement, we're seeing a workforce change in America. The other issue that I think we're going to see is back when I started, military was a big funnel for law enforcement.
Mm.
And you saw people get out of the Vietnam War or subsequent wars like that, and they came into law enforcement. It was a good transition. And then they stayed for 30, 35 years. The military now is highly skilled, highly trained. People are going into a private sector a lot easier, like cybersecurity and different things like that. They're not coming as much to law enforcement. We're getting a different type of employee that wants to be involved and wants to do things, but that kind of novelty it wears off pretty quickly. I think you're going to start seeing employees in law enforcement work about 5 years and then consider a job change.
Mm,
In the private sector, that's not uncommon. People change jobs in 5 years, and but law enforcement is not prepared for that. And one of the biggest problems is it takes about a year to train an employee. So our staffing levels drop so far for so long because it takes so long to train someone.
mm,
So I think we're going to have to really push our legislators and our other people that can call the shots in different states to look at different things like making college degrees more valuable and better prepared to get into law enforcement faster. Like if they have college degrees, they should be able to shave time off of a police academy, for example.
mm.
And or if they were in the military police, can we shave time off of an academy? Like in Illinois, they just recently did reciprocity for military police. So we're going to have to think of things differently. We're going to have to be maybe increasing our sworn strength, maybe not necessarily the number of people on the books at the same time, but we may have to have a higher number of people that are in the training pool that are going through the academy because we're just not going to be able to be full staffed. I just don't see that happening in the near future until the workforce attitudes nationwide change. It's not limited to law enforcement.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, you're starting to see the shift where you, like you said, you lost so many people to retirement. And so we have a large majority that are now retiring. And like you said, we don't have enough people who are hiring or coming into to the
Right.
academies. I wanted to give you kind of a funny story, and this is not completely off topic, but it's has to do with the change in the workforce and I think the mentality. And you had said this earlier about, you know, how public safety can't work from home, right? And I think that you do have a younger generation who I wouldn't say necessarily wants that, but I think it's really enticing to have those opportunities to work from home. They value their time off more. And I heard a story from a chief that said he was doing an interview with a potential hire, and they asked the question, are there work from home opportunities? And he was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, is there work from home opportunities? It's like, no, there's not. You know, like you can't work from home. Like you have to be out on the streets. Like you have to, you know, this is the job. Like, do you know what job you're applying for? And I think that it's a really interesting um, experience to go through to see, well, there are people who maybe do want to be in law enforcement, but they maybe don't understand that, you know, it's not a hybrid work from home type opportunity.
Yeah, we have to be out there every day. We have minimum staffing. We have to have a minimum number of people out there. We have to be on call for those things that happen after hours. Yeah, this is not a job that you can do if you don't like talking to people, if you don't like interacting with people, and you don't want to be present in the workforce out on the street in a car. Uh, Not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no work from home opportunities.
Do you think that with hiring and with the younger generation, that having wellness programming and things that are maybe outside of, um, you know, the monetary offerings is something that's helpful for hiring and recruitment?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the modern employee compared to 25 years ago is certainly more accepting of those different things, and they want them available to them. A
Yeah.
couple of examples, little off topic, but for example, if you would have asked a police officer to put an app on their phone just 10 years ago, they would have been like, absolutely not. I'm not, you're not putting I don't want an app on my phone that you know, the police department have the chief have access to my phone or something like that. Well, now the current generation is like, why can't I have the schedule on my phone? I want an app where I can see the schedule on my phone. In fact, I want to be able to put in for time off through the app on my phone. And if you would have asked employees that 5, 10, 20 years ago, they would have rejected that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So a chief has to understand the modern workforce and be present in the space of modern society. So certainly wellness programs, therapy are important to a modern younger worker that wasn't even a topic when I started in the 90s. That wasn't available. It wasn't offered. No one even talked about it. But I think it's expected now that we have that available. We do that here. We have a couple of different programs. We've contracted with a company called 1041 that does nationwide chaplain service, and then we also have them for a wellness program and therapy. And it's just a tool in the toolbox. We don't force it on anybody. We just leave it out there. We're trying to start about 6 months ago, I started a thing called the Better Half, and we try to get the families involved. We try to get the families or the spouses or significant others together. I try to get in front of them to talk about the benefits, the pensions, the insurance. One thing we'll find out is that shockingly, cops are terrible communicators. So the spouses will be like, "We had no idea there was an open enrollment," or "We didn't know that there was a vision plan," or "We didn't know there was an opportunity to come in and see a counselor," because that information is not getting home. So if you can get it to the family, I think that's helpful. If you would have asked 10 or 20 years ago, "Hey, can I talk to your wife about the job?" They'd have been like, "Absolutely not." And now I think that's becoming more available. We're seeing different kind of unique things. Like I have a therapy dog or a comfort canine in the building. We have another dog that sniffs electronics that's attached to our forensic unit, but he's an English retriever, and he just runs around the department. I just see cops down on the floor petting a dog. Things like that are, I think, value add. They make the workplace more enjoyable. We're looking at getting a sauna. Uh, we have workout facilities in the building. So all these things, I think, are part of your culture, and I think that is more scrutinized by a younger generation of what is the culture like at this place, and do I want to work there? Is it a good environment?
Yeah, and I think I really like that reminder that, as a leader, you have to be adaptable and open-minded and understand what people are looking for, especially as the younger generation comes in. Because yeah, I mean, I started in this space 8 years ago, and it was so different than it is now. And I can't even imagine what it was like when you started, 27 years ago. But I think if you would have asked your younger self back then, if you would have thought that there'd be a sauna, at the station, that you would have been like, no way, And so I think that it's really interesting to see the things that are put into place. And I always love dogs. I think that that's a really good addition.
Yeah, I'll also preface this with I think you have to still enforce your standards and the expectations. Like this isn't Sesame Street here. We're not, we're a public safety entity. We take our job seriously. The expectations are very high. I hold people accountable. We have a lot of policies and rules here, and I expect you to follow them. I expect you to be, I have three core values here that we establish: professionalism, teamwork, and integrity. And I expect you to be a professional, operate in a team, and have high integrity. And we don't stray from those. And I tell people, if you operate under those core values, I don't think we'll have any problems. So it's a two-way street. It's not just me giving, giving, giving. And so I think that people can get carried away with that stuff that we're here to support the employees, but you have a responsibility and a job to do, and I expect you to do that. I expect you to be here. I expect you to participate. I expect you to perform at a high level. I expect you to be really good at your job and provide really good service. In exchange, we pay a lot of money to send people to really good training.
Mhm.
So that's all part of a culture. And so if you're a chief now or you're going to be a police chief, you have to sit down in a strategic plan and be like, what do I want my culture to be? I want this to be a great place to work. We spent $200,000 putting new carpet in the building because we want this to be a good environment for someone to come work here. But we also have very high standards. And so it's a two-way street. I don't want it to sound like, it's all fun and games.
Right.
That's not what we're about. And down to the details of uniforms and appearance. Um, but I think that it provides structure for people to enjoy the culture, and there's clear expectations. So it's all part of a package. I don't think that there's one thing like don't if you're a chief listening to this, don't go out and buy a sauna and be like, oh, everything's gonna be fine tomorrow. It's a
Right.
total package that you have to customize for your agency, and it's some deep analysis and deep thought and communication with your staff.
Yeah, and I really like that. I mean, to me, it sounds like you're like, it's the culture. Like, we're trying to create a culture
Yes.
where, like, there's high expectation, there's a high elite level of performance that we're providing or that we're having, out on the streets, making sure that we're there for our community, that we're doing our job in an effective way. But we're also trying to make sure that our people want to be here and that they feel supported from a wellness perspective as well. So I like that you reminded everyone of that because, um, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but if you just throw a bunch of stuff on top of a broken culture, it's never going to help. Like, you're not going to just get a sauna and everything is solved overnight, like you said. So I
Right.
appreciate that reminder. I have two final questions for you. One, I know that you're running for ICP. What do you think the next generation or even the current generation needs to be prepared for that maybe no one's talking about right now?
Well, this is probably completely off topic from your wellness kind of theme, but artificial intelligence is the future of probably our society and is the future of law enforcement. The problem with historically, technology has not been very quickly adapted or adopted by law enforcement. And we've always been behind, whether it's computers in the squads, cameras in the squads. It took forever to get law enforcement to that point, while private industry was just sailing away in technology with efficiencies and effectiveness. And I think you're seeing that right now. I think, every 4 months, AI doubles.
Mhm.
It's on an exponential curve that is kind of scary, even out in just the general world. So if you're an agency that is not looking at technology, current technology, you're already behind the curve. So that has to be a priority for you as a police chief. Now, one of the issues I see, especially if you start getting gray hair and long in your years of service, it's easy to be like, I'll leave it for the next guy or gal. Um, I just don't want to deal with it. Wrong answer. By that point, if you've got 6 months or 2 years left, you're going to damage the agency. Drones, self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, chat GPT. Uh, if you're not on top of that right now, you're behind. So I think that that's part of one of my pillars in my campaign for ICP, but that has to be a priority for our profession, our association, ICP, and then also an individual police chief or sheriff that's leading an organization in law enforcement. It's the future of law enforcement.
Thank you. No, I'm glad that you brought that up. And I know like maybe it's not associated with wellness, but I think it is. I've heard of AI wellness programming that's going out there and just even the things that you're seeing now on social media that are completely fake. Everything is AI. And so how do you get in front of these things that are growing so exponentially? And I feel like I used to be on top of things, and I used to think that I was young and I was like up to date on technology, and I feel like it's already slipping away from me personally. So I love that piece of advice of like, hey, get in front of it. We know it's coming, and how can you use it to your advantage? So thank you for sharing
I'll
that.
connect the two. I'll connect AI and wellness together.
Okay.
If you go to your doctor, maybe even try to find a wellness doctor and ask them to do advanced blood work on you, not just the run-of-the-mill, complete blood count. Spend a little bit of extra money, spend $500 and get an extra tests done. Get that paperwork and drop it into ChatGPT and give it a prompt that says, pretend you're a wellness doctor, analyze this data from a person, give it your information. Generically, I'm a 49-year-old male, blah, blah, blah. Um, what are concerning things that you see in this, and what should I do to be healthier, happier, and live longer? And
Yeah.
you drop that file in there, and it will and analyze that in about 30 seconds better than any doctor that you're probably seeing today.
Yeah.
So that's a way you can connect the two and just test it out.
Yeah. Well, I even think that from what I'm hearing that there are programs out there that are connecting people with AI therapists. And so it would be a similar thing of like, hey, like, I want you to speak to me like I'm in law enforcement and here are the thing, and it's completely AI. It's not a person giving advice, it's AI giving, the therapy advice. So there's a lot of things in the wellness space that I'm hearing about, you know, bots too that are,
Well, yeah, I went to an AI summit in Utah in December of last year and met with some of the greatest minds from ChatGPT and OpenAI and different things like that. And a lot of these AI models have passed the medical boards, they've passed the legal bar for being an attorney, and are often better at diagnosing medical problems or wellness issues than a doctor, just looking based on their knowledge or experience. And when it can research, known databases, um, and give you 100% medical diagnosis, and I'm not saying that you should just, supplement it for humans, but it certainly has some intriguing opportunities to take advantage of to get really good, detailed information. And then, ultimately, it helps you be more educated about your own personal wellness,
yeah.
and learn about better supplementation, better diet plans, better workout plans, maybe for your age. You don't have to spend a ton of money to go, get a personal counselor or something like that to devise a wellness program for you. You can kind of get something and head it in a really great direction from that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunities for that to help law enforcement, help police chiefs, and help us live longer.
Absolutely. Final question, and in that same realm, what words of advice would you give to someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known or something that's helped you along the way.
Well, I'm gonna say invest for retirement, but I'm gonna qualify that with a not just financially. Certainly, financial wellness is a component of your total wellness package. You need to think about your future and saving for retirement, whether it's your pension program, adding different financial vehicles like a Roth or 457 plans. How are you going to pay for your kids' college? Those should be part of your investment for retirement. But invest in two other things. Invest in your family.
Mm.
What are you doing along the way to build family relationships, to strengthen those family relationships, taking vacations when you can, to be with people, be there with your parents and your family members when you're young. Life is not eternal on this earth, and it's shorter than you think. So don't discount those opportunities to spend time with people and invest in family. And then invest in your wellness. You've got to stay on top of your health. And if I could qualify that by saying do it earlier rather than later.
Mm.
I'm 49 years old. I didn't think when I was 20 that I would be 49 years old. You don't think about that. But if you don't take care of yourself for 20 some years, 29 years, you're going to pay the price for it in retirement. The ultimate goal should be that you have a happy, healthy retirement, that your body parts all still work, that you can walk and you can play golf and you can swim, that you're in good health. But that's a lifelong journey that takes small investments over time. And so my advice is invest for retirement in three areas: finances, family, and personal wellness.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much. And if there's anything I missed, I'll let you take the floor, but that's all I have for you. And I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the time, and hopefully someone gets something out of it. These podcasts are great. Hopefully somebody's driving to their next meeting or their next vacation or somewhere on the road and can get a little bit of an opportunity to just take something away from this and all of your podcasts. And there's so much information out there. Just build your toolbox for wellness and live a long, happy, healthy life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.